All right, we're going to be talking about how to prepare for your workout. The most common warm-up mistakes we see are either skipping it entirely or spending way too much time here. So we want to go over how to efficiently get done what you need to get done to both move better in this workout and for the long term. Okay, so there's a few sections of a good thorough warm-up that we're going to cover today with a little bit of an example from each one. You could follow that example warm-up exactly. You could also kind of plug in other things that you know from your background into this structure, but this structure would be a good guide for you in your warm-ups. Okay, so we're going to start out with some soft tissue work. Soft tissue work can encompass foam rolling, massage, vibrating massage guns, all that type of work. What we're going to use today is either a tennis ball, kind of level 1, a little softer, or a lacrosse ball, level 2, something a little firmer, to do a little tissue work in a few commonly stiff spots, especially if you're a desk worker who's sitting a lot of the day. The first spot we're going to hit is the side of the hip. Okay, so you can kind of find this little bony notch on the side of your hip, and going right in front of that, it's almost like where a pocket would generally be on your pants, or a little bit above that. Peter's going to put the ball right in that spot and then roll onto it and just hang out a little bit, doing some nice inhaling through the nose, nice relaxed exhaling, just trying to release some of that kind of guarding and tension that can kind of creep up in some of these hot spots throughout the day. Another common spot we find people need is the back of the hip, just kind of right there in the middle of the glute. He's just going to have a seat on the ball and do the same thing. Just hang out, relax, and release some of that tension. And then one spot we typically find in the upper body that needs a little release is the pec, kind of right in the front of the shoulder, kind of almost in the indentation between your pec and your deltoid. So kind of putting the ball right there and then leaning into a wall and doing the same thing, nice relaxed breathing, trying to let that tension relax a little bit. Okay. After doing some tissue work, and again, that could include other places that you feel you need a little work there, we're going into raising tissue temperature, raising body temperature, okay, as needed. If it's a warm summer day, if you're already feeling kind of warm, the rest of the work might raise your body temperature enough to where you could kind of skip this section. But if you're joining us from Wisconsin in a December morning, you might need to hop on a piece of cardio equipment, or move a sled around, or do some skips and jumping around just to get your body physically warmer before we move on to the rest of the work here. So that's just an as needed, choose your own adventure thing. Would recommend just a couple minutes there to still kind of keep this total thing to like sub 10 minutes. Okay. After that, we'll get into some mobility work. Okay. Ideally, you can move every joint in your body through a nice full range of motion and control that range of motion. And we'll look to put out a lot more content on this area in the future and kind of deep dive it a little bit more. But for starters today, some areas we want to see good mobility are spine, ankle, hip, and shoulder. Okay? And we're just going to go over a couple sample drills that you might do to kind of hit those things before your workout. So for good spine mobility, Peter's going to go through a cat-cow here, just doing some flexion and extension of his spine. Here's flexion as he drives his sternum up to the sky, and then extension as he drives sternum down to the ground, trying to get kind of every segment from tailbone up to the crown of the head involved there. Inhaling on the way down and exhaling as he drives up. Yeah, so just kind of getting each segment there to move around a little bit. Okay, and then for ankle, hip, and shoulder, there's obviously a ton of different drills you could do to work on those areas. One simple one for the purpose of today that we like that can kind of hit all of those areas is what we call the lunge series. So getting here into a lunge position, Peter's first going to drive his front knee as far as he can forward to get as much range here at this ankle as possible. Feeling a little stretch back behind that ankle. Okay. Then he's going to straighten that front leg out, get a little hamstring stretch there on that front leg, and he might do that a couple times, maybe two or three times, just kind of going back and forth there between ankle and hamstring. And then after that, if he's a little, go ahead, yeah. If he's a little limited there, he might need some hand support, from some blocks or some dumbbells or something to help him get down there, depending on how stiff you are. Okay, and then paired with that, another thing we love is getting into that same lunge shape and doing a little rotation. So kind of keeping this shin vertical now, taking that same side elbow and kind of reaching down towards the arch of the foot, and then reaching and rotating up to the sky, pulling the shoulder back, getting some good kind of pec mobility on this shoulder, getting that spine to rotate now. So again, getting a little bit more spine mobility. But even just going through that series on each side for like 3 reps of each of those positions. Again, kind of ankle stretch to hamstring stretch, and then this big rotation, elbow to the floor, hand to the sky. We'll kind of check a lot of your mobility boxes in one swoop. Okay. So after doing some mobility on these spots, and again, a lot of different drills you could choose from there, we'll go into some activation work. So trying to get some of the muscles that are going to be the main stabilizers and movers in your workout kind of primed and ready to go before you start throwing a ton of weight on your body. Usually just doing maybe one lower body activation drill, often a glute or a hip pattern, and then one upper body activation drill, often like a rotator cuff type pattern. So for a lower body pattern, Peter's going to do a bridge here. He's going to tuck his hips, he's going to squeeze his glutes, he's going to drive on up and squeeze his glutes hard up at the top, and he might do a few reps of that. He might toss a band around his knees as he does that to get a little more lateral hip activation, but same cues, planting feet into the ground, squeezing glutes, driving knees wide as he goes up into the bridge. If he's extra strong or doesn't have a band, he might do this one-legged. You can slide that band off. Then just plant one foot into the ground, drive the other knee up towards his chest, and again, same thing, squeezing glute, driving that knee in, just trying to get his hips active before he does something like deadlift or squat later that day. Okay? And then for an upper body activation pattern, he's going to grab a super band here and go into a pull-apart pattern, just kind of keeping posture nice and tall, squeezing shoulder blades together and driving out against that band. He's going to flip around so you can see his shoulder blades moving here and squeezing at the finish, and just trying to get a lot of activation back here in this scapular and kind of rotator cuff muscle, also all that good postural muscle that, again, many of us spend a lot of the day here. So doing a little extra work to open yourself up before your workout can be a good idea. Okay? And then our last category is doing a little bit of power prep. Your first complex in your workout is generally going to have some power movements in there, some training that skill of moving quickly. That's very, very important to train. And if you haven't jumped in a decade, we don't necessarily want you to just go right all out on your first jump in that first complex. So doing some lower level jumping stuff like some hops or a little skipping in place, or even just some absorptions, kind of practicing landing, getting tall and ripping down, but just some kind of lower level stuff, getting the body ready to move quickly could be the last step of that warm-up. So again, to recap, some tissue work, get the body's temperature up, mobilize, major joints, especially spine, ankle, hip, and shoulder, get major muscle groups activated and ready to go, and then, get the body ready to move quickly, kind of excite the body, wake the brain up a little bit, and get ready to go, and you should be rocking and rolling and having a great workout coming up.